Hello and welcome to part 4 and the final part of my seascape tutorial. This is how far we got last week. As you can probably see, I've given it a lovely press and that's all come up really well. So what we need to do now is just put the finishing touches to the piece, and to do that I normally put my mount over the top so that I know exactly where I want pieces to go, because else, as you can see, you've got plenty of overlap underneath, and if you don't put your mount over the top you'll end up putting beads and buttons on that when you come to put the mount on top you'll realise are covered up by the mount, or you have to take them off again because the mount won't sit properly. So I'm just going to pick you up now and just explain to you what choices you've got as regards putting some detail in your piece. You could leave it exactly like that and that would be absolutely fine. For those of you who would want to do that, that's fine. I prefer to put a few little extra bits and pieces in just to add a bit more interest. So I'm just going to pick this up and bring this across now and show you. I've got a lovely mat here with lots of pretty things on it. So I tend to use a combination of buttons and beads. So as you can see, what I do first of all is I actually get out anything that I think might be useful, and this is what I've actually done here. All sorts of things here, lots of different types of buttons. I tend to get quite a lot of my buttons on eBay and at shows. Also Etsy is very good for unusual buttons. This is a sea glass button which is really pretty. This is a sort of marble effect stone button. I've got some little rings down here, some little sort of copper rings, also some tiny seed beads. And these are tiny seed beads as well. That's a little bead as well. And down here we've got gravel beads in a couple of different shades, and they are really useful. I don't tend to use them much in the smaller pieces, but when I'm doing the larger pieces they come in really useful. And then you come over here, you've got tiny little rings here and some tiny little buttons there. As you can see, they are really quite tiny next to my finger. So there's plenty of selection, and what I would recommend you do first of all is get out bits and pieces that you might have that you think might be suitable, and then it's a case of having a play. So I've had a look at all that, and I'm going to actually use these pieces down in the corner here. So I've got a couple of little buttons. That one is slightly larger than this one, which works quite well. Some little tiny cream seed beads, one of the larger rings and one of the tiny ones, and then some very tiny little brown seed beads. So I'm just going to pop you back now so that you can see. And I normally start by putting the larger buttons on first because that affects the balance of the piece. So what I'm probably going to do is somewhere around there and here, and you can fiddle around until you're happy with it. The rings are probably going to go over this side. What I will say is putting some detail on is great, but just be careful you don't put too much because you can overfill your piece, and this is why it's really good to have a little fiddle around. So I'm just going to drop that there, and then I think this cream area here would just look nice with a few extra embellishments on there. So we'll just and try to place things as naturally as possible. It's really hard because our human brains really like organisation, so it's really easy to realise when you step back from something that you've actually placed them out all equally spaced, and you don't want to do that. So what I've got here, so I'm just going to pick you up again so that you can have a closer look. So here I've got the buttons in the corner coming across to the beads and the little rings, and then up here to the tiny little cream seed beads. So I've scattered them not in a straight line, and they're not evenly spaced either, so that it looks nice and natural. What you can also do is use French knots, which some of you might have seen me doing in other pieces. You could put some tiny French knots through here. That would work really well as well. Now then, obviously once you've placed everything out and you're happy with it, to be able to stitch it on, you've actually got to take it all off again. So what I would normally recommend that you do is to actually take a photograph of everything in place that you can then refer to, just so that you know where everything goes, because I can guarantee you else it will not go back in the same place. So obviously I'm using my phone to record this video for you, so I can't take a photo. Anybody who isn't in a position to take a photo, what you actually need to do is actually lift each piece. I'm just going to pop you back down again. Just lift each piece and just put a couple of marks there where you know they're going to go. And these are done with the friction pen, and therefore they will iron off perfectly afterwards. So you'll be stitching them on top and then they will iron off. And then just mark up here as well. There we are. And then when you take these off, you can see you've got your little marks there. Okay. So that is what you need to do to set up and get it ready. Then once you're ready to stitch, I use a beading needle, a size 10 beading needle, and you can't see this, but it's got clear thread in it. You can use a thread that is very close to the colour of the beads and buttons that you're actually using. But I prefer to use clear because then I don't have to keep changing the thread if I'm going from some dark beads to some lighter ones, or vice versa. So all I'm going to need to do now is actually secure the clear thread on the back and take everything off, and then just stitch them on one by one. Even with the buttons, one or a maximum of 2 stitches to secure it is perfectly adequate. And once they're all stitched on, take it to your ironing board, turn it over and just iron it lightly on the back with a warm iron, and that will get rid of all the black marks that you've actually got on the fabric itself. And then you are basically finished. I'm not going to sit here and stitch them all on. I'm going to do that in a little bit. What I really wanted to do today was just give you some inspiration, so that you feel that you can have a look at that and see what you've got in your own cupboards. I'll just bring that down. They will all stitch in place, and then the piece is finished, ready for mounting and framing. I hope that you've enjoyed watching my seascape videos over the past 4 weeks. Up next, I think, is probably going to be a landscape. I've had quite a few requests for a landscape, so I think I'm probably going to look at doing a landscape next over the next few weeks. I'm going to get this finished and pressed, and then it will actually be up for sale on my Instagram and Facebook page. Probably will be tomorrow now by the time I actually get this finished. So that will be Saturday. I will put it up at a special price, so anybody that is interested, please do get in touch. I hope you've enjoyed watching me produce a small seascape, and I hope, well, I know that it's inspired quite a lot of you. I've had some pictures already. Please do send me your finished pictures when you've got them of what you've actually produced from watching this tutorial, and I'll see if I can put some sort of collage together of everybody's work. In the meantime, enjoy your sewing, and thank you for watching.